The goal is that Canadian women entrepreneurs run wildly successful businesses. That means they have the resources to do so. And the resources include everything from education, community, capital. They have what they need to be able to do so. And that's not to say we are the only place for it or the only conduit for it, but we're able to help support them with that and facilitate that happening for them. So when we design our programs, every single one of our programs, we look from an impact metric perspective. So we say, if we run E-Series, how will we define success for this? How will we be able to say this program was successful? That is not, one of the metrics for that is not X number of people attended. The metrics of success for that are, as a result of this, how many more jobs is this business able to create? What is the revenue growth? How much capital did they raise as a consequence of it? Would they recommend someone to take this program?
Yo, what's going on, Movement family, Think Space family? Hey guys, I'm proud of you guys getting through the Movement Challenge. That's amazing. I got through it too. Me and Tracy, we got through it every day in the apartment, getting it done. And I wanted to quit a couple times. I can't lie. Mark's over here doing bonus rounds and stuff. It's tough. It's tough out here. Anyways, I know you guys are strengthening your bodies and, now strengthening your minds and getting more informed. So today on the podcast, we have Paulina Cameron. Paulina Cameron is the CEO of FWE Forums for Women Entrepreneurs. Now, she also founded YWCA, Young Women in Business. She also led Futurepreneur for a number of years. She also wrote Canada 150 Women, which is just an amalgamation of the most inspirational and incredible women in Canada. Anyways, that doesn't even do her justice. Paulina is an expert on motherhood, on setting boundaries, on being a CEO while being pregnant, while just killing it as a mom and as an executive. And she's someone that is most definitely knows a ton about small business and everything going on right now with COVID and how to support young businesses and how to support female entrepreneurs. She's a plethora of wealth. I don't know how else to put it. And it's incredible to hear from her. We took a couple left turns and right turns in the conversation, and I got curious about parental dynamics and different types of things. But we figured it out, and we really got into the nuts and bolts, into the tactics, and we also played in the clouds a little bit, and we talked philosophy and paradigms and mindsets, and yeah, man, it's just a great pod. Like, I haven't been, I don't know, I'm just really excited about this pod. And you're like, man, Josh, you don't sound that excited. That's just because that's just who I am, man. Honestly, I'm really, really excited to bring this podcast to you, and I hope that you guys feel as good about it as I do about it. So anyways, without further ado, everybody, here is Paulina Cameron. Paulina, thank you so much for joining me on the Think Space podcast. I appreciate your time. What is going on in your world?
Hey, Joss, so good to be on here. Thanks for having me. My world is full of businesses, women, and babies.
That's awesome. What a world to live in. Amazing. This is far overdue. We've had you in our sights for quite some time, but I'm actually really, really glad that we didn't do this earlier and that we're doing this now, because damn, is it applicable. So I appreciate your expertise and what you're bringing to the table here. I wanted to ask you right out of the gate here to maybe give us a little bit of some context and some background of FWE and the function that you serve, the role that you serve right now.
Great question. So we are an organization that has existed for 18 years. So we've been around a while. We're based physically in Vancouver, or at least currently we are. And we support women entrepreneurs from across the entire country in running wildly successful businesses. However, they are defined for themselves. And when I think about the work that we are doing right now, I think about how what we are doing now has been what we have always been doing. The format of it and the how of it just looks different. And at its very base, it's supporting women entrepreneurs to bring to life the visions for their business and help them be resilient in doing so. It's equipping them with the education they need, the community they need, the connections, the mentorship, the advice, the things that go around it to make it all come to life. How we're doing it right now is a little bit different, as it is for pretty much everyone I know. But the what and the values behind it, the values and philosophies of leave no woman behind, the values of running a wildly successful business on your terms, integrative of your life, those are all still true.
I love it. Oh my gosh. What are your personal motivations in this? And when I say, like, I look at your background and I'm like, okay, you have YWIB, you have Young Women in Business, you have Futurepreneur, you have, the YWCA, you have Canada 150 Women, you have, Government of BC, was it Small Business Council Roundtable?
Small Business Roundtable, yeah.
And I'm like, holy, this woman is built for this damn role. I'm sure there's a lot of jobs you could have taken. And for context, you've been in this role for what, a year, 2 years now?
Yeah, a year, not quite a year and a half, almost.
Right. So I'm sure there's a plethora of opportunities for you at that time, and there continues to be. What is it about FWE for you that you place so much value and put so much energy and time and effort into it?
Women entrepreneurs are my heroes. And I think, the quote of love the work that you do, you never work a day in your life. Not entirely true. There are some hard days and you work your butt off. And does it feel ridiculously rewarding at the end of the day? And does it feel really connected to my values? And does it align with what I believe in? And does it align with a future that I can get behind? Yes. So all of those things are definitely ticked off. I took the role when I was 5 months pregnant. No questions or considerations about whether a 5-month pregnant CEO makes sense or not. The questions were around, how do we make this happen? What do we do? How do we support the team? The team is phenomenal. Getting to work with them is such a pleasure and delight every day. So those are the reasons why I'm here, is because I know that together we can create the future that we want to create. And I get to work with women entrepreneurs who are in that same boat and have that same philosophy.
Okay. Pause for a second. You took the job when you were 5 months pregnant?
It's the second time I've taken a job when pregnant. My husband jokes that we need to have another baby solely for my job opportunities. The last one, I was 8 months pregnant, so this felt like a breeze.
Okay. So what did 8 and 9 months pregnant look like for you at FWE? Like, how the heck? Like, I have no idea and no context on what it's like to be giving birth, and in the last final months of pregnancy and the first couple months after that, while being a CEO of a national organization. What the heck is that like?
It is, you get really comfortable with people seeing your feet a lot, because I'd be kicking my shoes off a lot.
Oh, okay. All right. Why not?
So with a month to go, so my daughter was born May 20th, and April 24th to 26th last year, we ran our E-Series, which is a 3-day immersive business program. It's one of the tenets of all the programs that we run. It's incredible. 60 women come together and spend 3 days working on their business. Instead of just in it, you spend morning, evening, day all together. You learn from other entrepreneurs. We have experts come in. There's pitching, there's deep diving, there's mind share, there's mentorship. It's all of it. It is so intense. I was so pregnant. The photos from last year are ridiculous. And I spent half the time barefoot because that's what we could do it. However, what is also true about that time, and I feel this way about motherhood, I feel this way about pregnancy and giving birth, is that it just unlocks a superpower of focus, of honesty, of clarity, of caring about the things that actually truly do matter. It is, to me, I consider it such a superpower, an exhausting one at times, and a really, really clarifying and focusing one. So that was my experience with it. And I will say the biggest asterisk, though, around that is the support that comes with it. I have a partner who's a full-on equal parent as I am. He's actually the primary parent in our household right now, and a team who gets it. I mean, it's a team of 7 women, of whom half are also mothers. So the conversations in our office are always integrative of all of that. We ask how potty training is going. Did your kids sleep through the night last night? Or do you need me to get a coffee? Those are all part of the narrative that gets woven into that.
Okay, I'm about to go down a rabbit hole, and the podcast host Joss is going, Joss, don't freaking go there. But
are you about to ask me about potty training?
Real Joss is going to go there. No, actually, I will, but maybe that's a conversation off camera. But I really wanted to ask. So context here is I grew up in a single parent home, and I grew up in a home where I was never home. So the idea of parenting is this like weird concept to me. And I didn't have great parents by traditional standards or whatever. And I'm curious, and part as we talk about, building a future that we want to create and why women are marginalized, these different types of things and what's created systematically. I really want to ask you, and this is just off the whim, is like, well, how do you see parenting from a gender roles perspective in 2020? What should that look like? And I'm coming into this with no conceived notions.
First of all, I will say, whenever I hear the word like, what should this be? I get this visceral reaction of, no shoulds, don't should all over this, because everyone's situation's different, right? About anything. Anything. So I think, first of all,
may I rephrase? I apologize.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
How should we think about this? Because I don't even know how to think about it.
And I think it depends if you're asking the question, how do we think about it systemically versus how do we think about it individually? Or maybe it's not even different. Let me go with my train of thought here. My husband and I were having a conversation. And so he's been the stay-at-home parent since October. I went back to work when my daughter was 5 months old. And we were talking about what are the things about the COVID circumstances right now, particularly about the forced work from home and presence on that front, that have served us well. So a lot of, am I allowed to swear? A lot of this all is just shit, right? So it's just, there's so much awful happening right now. And there are things that we have been forced to consider and reevaluate and adapt to that probably are serving us, and maybe we want to reconsider even in a world going forward to preserve those. And so we were talking about that, and he said, for the first time, I am having different and truer and realer conversations with other men, because even if they're not the primary stay-at-home, they are at home now, and they are with their kids, and they are doing lunch in the middle of the day at home and around that. And so one of the tenets of this conversation of parenting, I think, needs to be that none of this equality will ever shift or change if it doesn't shift or change for men. If the expectations of them doesn't shift or change, if what we hold them capable of doesn't shift or change, it's starting to. I think there's a conception that in 2020, millennial men are out there doing all these progressive things. By far and large, they are not yet. It's not, anywhere close to a significant number of them. You hear about pockets. Oh, he's taking a 1 month pat leave or a 2 month or little bits and pockets of that. But I bet if I asked you to name a stay-at-home father, you would be hard pressed to find one. Yeah, 0, right? Exactly.
Zero.
And that's not to say everyone needs to be that. It's simply to say that the pendulum is so far on one side that for it to feel anywhere resembling that center ground, there would need to be that pendulum swing the other way. And so what's been interesting about this time is I think everyone's been grappling with this at home as you're trying to juggle and manage all those things, is I think there will be a greater empathy for that. I certainly am seeing a shift in conversation about the understanding of importance of childcare and the value of that coming to the forefront in a very, very tangible way. And I think that is good.
Okay, further down the rabbit hole we go. Love that. And I completely agree. From a business perspective, because I think we both think a lot about entrepreneurs and creating new businesses and creating economic opportunity. So from an economic opportunity standpoint, how might you suggest that the dynamic of parenting shift so that it can more equally favor, I'll just say be more equal. Because right now, from my understanding, it's a huge burden to do exactly what you just did. And that's why that question around like, how the heck did you give birth and be the CEO of this company and do it so well? So how might the parental relationship change in order to better support women? I don't know if that's even a valid question.
I'll answer it from kind of an economic and business perspective then. So first of all, we can know all the data around it. And data is important and so that it roots us in the reality. So we can know, for example, the data that if women were to be able to participate in entrepreneurship to the same degree as men, so that means access to capital, etc., which, by the way, women in Canada receive 6% of venture capital.
Right.
Period. 6% single digit. Another statistic to know is if they equally participated, the Canadian economy would grow by something like 150 billion. It's a McKinsey stat. You can look it up. I'm sure I got the numbers slightly wrong, but generally ballpark, give it that, plus minus a billion. We know that for every 10% increase in women working, there's a 5% increase in wages. We know that women entrepreneurs disproportionately higher, 75% higher, invest in their communities beyond just investing in their businesses. So we could root ourselves in that data and numbers. And data is so arbitrary and it's numerical. It doesn't have that emotional attachment for us to actually see change happen. In the office, I think parenthood, and I was going to say motherhood, but it's not just motherhood, it's parents. So it's individuals who have been on the home front for a significant period of time. It's a freaking superpower. You are so productive when you have only so much time to get things done. You get so laser focused, both in terms of what you need to do, but in terms of what matters and what you're going to focus on. It is such a superpower. It brings clarity. Also, if you've ever negotiated with a 3 or a 4-year-old, hands down, you'll win any argument. The best business management book that exists out there is called How to Talk to Your Little Kids So They Will Listen. Seriously, the techniques in there are phenomenal. Make sure the other person is heard, acknowledge their feelings, repeat what you're hearing them say. Oh, I hear you're frustrated about this situation at work. Tell me more. Right. It's all so applicable. And so if we can begin to actually value that, if we can actually begin to say, hey, I see the value that you bring. And then secondly, a sidebar conversation is let's also pay for all of this because the care economy is so underpaid, aka undervalued, because money right now is how our society has placed value. It's said more money equals more value. That's our perception of it. That's how we're going to assign value to it. And so unless we get that changed, then that's not going to change.
Right. And however, we can take another angle on that and say, well, yeah, money's our common language. We get that. We care about these things like, for instance, the caring economy or equal opportunity or anything in climate. And this is the right thing to do. And we know it's the right thing to do. Everyone knows it's the right thing to do. Right? We can't, that's generally understood. However, we don't act in that way. And so I think there's an opportunity that is here for female entrepreneurs to seize and say, hey, listen, I get it. You say you care, your actions, every PR is going to say, yes, equal opportunity. And yet, like venture capital funding, 6%. So there's a disparity there. Mm-hmm. So why don't we take another approach here and say, hey, listen, numbnuts, sorry, my words, not yours. Why don't we think about this and we say, all right, how much can we add to the economy here? Right? How can we boost our bottom line by giving these people opportunities? And so the question I pose to you is, what is the opportunity that is underlying here from a business perspective if we unlock the female entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, it's billions, right? Like look up any of the McKinsey stats, the world, what is the other organization that put out really good stats around this? I can send these over to you later.
Worries.
You can, whatever. We also know that women provide higher returns on investment. So there was a study done, call it within the last 3 to 4 years, that showed that let me get this right, for every dollar invested, women-led business returned 87 cents on the dollar versus an all-male team would return 34 cents on the dollar or something like that.
Yeah, you put that on your gala. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, yeah. And so these are all significant, and these are not new. We have known these for a while. And so, part of it here, I hear what you are saying, like, let's convince with the data and the numbers. Right? Right? And how about, what would it be like if we worked with those who got it? Right. What if we brought the people to the table who said, yeah, I get it. Yes, I'm walking the talk on this. Yes, I'm investing. And we worked with them and we proved it by winning over here. And them over here, they're going to look at it and go, what is happening over there? How is that working? What is going on? I was talking to someone who was doing this great analysis on Canadian companies and looking at gender parity within businesses. And they came back with this data and they were perplexed by it. And it was an all-male team, but they were perplexed by why majority of the businesses that had no gender pay equity problem were run by women. Right.
What's up with that?
Yeah.
That's weird.
So, I think what we're talking about here is like, is it the carrot dangle approach or is it the hit with the baton in the back approach? Like, which one are you taking? And I think there's a time and place for one or the other. And there's a time and place to go, we're going to go over here and we're going to work with the people who are truly believing in it and walk the talk in that.
Okay. I love it. So I've talked a lot on this podcast about value is great. Value is amazing. But what is more important than value is how you communicate the value. Because it doesn't matter how great the value is. If it doesn't get communicated, it's worth nothing. And so if I take that concept and put it in the context of this conversation, it's like, well, how do we frame, what's the messaging? And I guess it's digital messaging now. Like, what's the narrative that you're trying to put out there to, again, whether it's, dangle the carrot or beat with a baton? Amazing anecdotes there. That's amazing. But like, what's the digital narrative? What's the story that you're telling around this? That's like, what's the approach you personally are taking, and why are you taking that approach?
I take the approach of putting the stories forward that matter. So I want to hear the stories of the women who are leading. I want to hear the impact they are having. I want to know that 87% of the women who start businesses are doing it with a social purpose in mind, that they're integrating social impact into their business supply chain, that they're thinking local from the get-go. I was talking to a woman entrepreneur who runs a huge design clothing manufacturing company based in Quebec. And she's a second-generation entrepreneur. Her father started the business. She's been running it for a number of years. And when COVID hit, within 5 days, she went from a 700-person company to a 7-person company.
No.
And within 5 days, was producing Health Canada-approved face shields for hospitals in the Quebec area and directly to doctors who weren't before that able to work because they didn't have access to PPE.
Wow.
I asked her, beyond the mindset of agility and adaptability and doing the thing that's right, what enabled them to do it? And she said that a core principle and a core belief they've always had in the business, and she stands by so firmly, is keeping at least a strong portion of their manufacturing locally. So they didn't have to depend on what was happening over in China or India to get any sourcing or for shipment or for anything. Their warehouse is literally down their street and they're able to do it. And when I hear of businesses and of women who are running their businesses with those principles and values integrated, that to me makes sense. And what I want people to know is I want people to know why they do it and why it matters and the impact that then has. I think those are the stories. And when we can connect those stories to the individual and we see how it makes sense, then we get it.
Right. I want to agree with you, but and I do truly agree with you, but I see the world. I see the world as it is. And what the message I think we're both saying is, hey, listen, you can have your cake and eat it too. You can be better for the world, and it's going to be better for your business. I get it. I've built my, financial career on that. And then I look at human behavior, and it's not that. And so I think there's something we're missing here. We're not getting it. We're not having mass adoption. I think one of the effects of COVID is going to be localization of supply chains, which is amazing. And that's something that we've been preaching for a long time, because again, we're seeing the effects of it. We look at, if you act in a socially responsible way, you're going to mitigate risk. You're going to have less business risk. That's incredible. And soon you're going to have higher profitability. So anyways, I digress. But I really do think we're missing something here. And because we don't have mass adoption, and I just want to have mass adoption. I want to have my way.
But I think we have to think about, what does it take for mass adoption to happen? I mean, take any kind of curve. Take the technology curve. You have the early adopters, and it takes something to go through the mass adoption curve, right? Mm-hmm. Upending our entire systems. I mean, in Canada, we're certainly in a place of privilege and still challenged a lot. But you look as far as down in the States, their healthcare systems are being upended. Everything is just being thrown on its head. We're in times where we are individually questioning our ways of being, but we're also looking around us. And I think for many people, for the first time ever, they are seeing the connectivity of these systems, and they are seeing the connectivity of it back to themselves. And, what does it mean that people aren't allowed to come into Canadian borders? Okay, hold on, wait. We need immigration to flow so that we have people planting seeds for a crop in the spring and summer so that we have food to eat next fall and next spring. And what does that mean? So it takes the ability to see ourselves and our place within these systems and within these broader places of networking and place being. It takes seeing ourselves in it, seeing that possibly being compromised, and being forced into a situation of evaluating all of that, right? And what you're saying is, hey, that should have already been happening. Why hasn't it been happening? It is so obvious. My blinders have been off for so long. But we also know, Joss, that as people, we have such dis-ease with change and with being placed into discomfort and with not having things around us. We have this desire to control things around us, and we think that everything has been upended now. Everything is always upended. It's never been calm or status quo around us. Something could have happened to you in any moment's time. We just fabricate this sense of normalcy and calmness and control around us. And now we're in a time where all of a sudden we're realizing how fabricated it has all been, and we're kind of facing it with this sense of both urgency and intensity, and it's challenging, I think, a lot of narratives for it. And that is probably what it takes, is a collective disruption.
Yeah. Disruption, change, impermanence, right? These are all opportunities. Anytime there's volatility in one way or another, there's an opportunity there. Change creates opportunity. And that speaks more to the money that's to be made, the industries that are to be created, the jobs that are to be created. So yeah, does it take a disruption? I guess my youth wants me, my juvenile brain wants me to just shake the shit out of people. But anyways, that's great.
And do that. I mean, right. Don't let the fact that hasn't happened or hasn't worked in a way you would have wanted to stop you from that. That's what it needs, right? I think we need those, I'll liken it to, we live in Vancouver, close to Vancouver Island. I'll liken it to that big earthquake that is coming our way, the big one. Right. And what we know to be true from science is that there are constantly little ones happening that are shaking up those tectonic plates. And so those little things continuously happen and need to happen.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's a really good analogy. That's awesome. And I don't mean to be over here being all social justice warrior, blah, 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 blah. but it's just like,
hey, I am
you
with
know,
you. I am with you. I am re-listening to the book Winners Take All. Have you
oh,
read or
I
listened to
have
that
not.
book?
No.
Oh, you might need like a big bottle of scotch to get you through
Oh,
it, because it will
okay.
be
All right.
it will speak to your social justice heart, and it may amp up and fuel your frustration. However, it is a very good book to remind ourselves to question what we think we know to be true and how things have come about and how the systems that we benefit from, that we have privilege thanks to, what they mean and what they have created, or perhaps some unintended or intended consequences around those.
Yeah, yeah, super interesting. I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to ask you to where you really have your feet on the ground here, and that is, women entrepreneurs and small business. And I wanted to, because our audience is, predominantly female, and everyone in the movement challenge is, a ton of females are over there, and our audience, and a outstanding amount of trainers and entrepreneurs. Like everyone is doing their own thing, and I wanted to pass the mic to you in a little bit, and just kind of get your take on. I mean, we're recording this; it's the start of May. This is going to come out next week. I could ask, I was asking Dr. Roger Wong on our last podcast, like, where are we at with this whole thing, and in terms of a pandemic, and I wanted to ask you, where the hell are we at in terms of small businesses and how we're thinking? Because we can look back over the last month and go, okay, that's how this played out. That's how we were thinking about it at this time. And I want to go to today, to this week, to next week, and go, what are we doing, small business? What the heck is going on?
Yeah, I think I'll first start off by saying it is hard, and that I am so sorry that we are here. It is really, it's challenging to hear the stories of entrepreneurs, new entrepreneurs, or entrepreneurs who've been running their businesses for a while, whose visions, whose plans for growth, whose savings, whose communities have suddenly just been swept up from under their feet. I am continuously in awe of how many of them are trying to show up, are persevering, are figuring out what is the next right step that they can do that will help them survive. I know many who already are not going to continue their business, and many are wondering when the inevitable will happen. And I know many who are pivoting and have been able to do so, and are shifting gears entirely, and are trying to create a new. And so where are we, I think, really depends on that. Is this a business that perhaps was already struggling and now is facing the inevitable? Is this a business that was just starting out and that was just on that growth path and perhaps starting fundraising and starting building, and all of a sudden there is no up to go for the time being? Is this a business that has been around for a while and is able to pivot or transition? And I think one of the things that entrepreneurs can really remember is who they are in this. And that is something that it is what gives me hope, is that the what may change for a lot of people, the what they're doing, but the ability to persevere, to dig into grit, to be agile, to be creative. If we can get out of our fear brains and get into a place of options and reality, and we can move into that, I have no doubt our small business owners and entrepreneurs will eventually be okay because of who they are and the kinds of people that they are, especially ones that are so community minded and are so focused on these values that they live and breathe in their businesses every day. I've kind of gone off track a little bit. What was your question again, Joss?
my question is, and I'll rephrase a little bit now, and I want to know, actually, let's throw it out the door. I want to know for you right now, I want to know what you're seeing. I want to know what you're seeing from businesses. And if there's anything that you can identify as that's a right move Can I say that? And that's a wrong move. How can we go right and how can we go wrong here? What's your thoughts around that?
Right. And I'm a big believer in non-binary, no right, no wrong, because
right. And that's why I was kind of like,
so what I'll say is, what is helpful for many entrepreneurs that I am observing is firstly being rooted in reality. And that often can be really uncomfortable, which is literally looking at, what is my money in my bank account? What do I need to get out the door every day? What are my payables? What are my receivables? Very, quote unquote, mundane, boring business admin stuff. And being rooted in that reality allows us to move from that place and make the right decisions then based on that circumstance. So first of all, being rooted in reality. And then secondly, getting into the place of options. So moving from that mindset of that scarcity, of that reactivity, and into a place of response. So now that I know, how shall I respond? How shall I be? Tangibly, a lot of businesses are trying to figure out the right cash flows to do. I think anyone who's trying to forecast beyond, anyone who's been impacted by this, who's trying to forecast beyond the next 3-ish months, I question the validity of that. I think everything that I'm hearing and seeing from big companies to government, etc., the best assumptions that can be made now are as conservative as possible, because the ripple effects for people's individual financial circumstances, looking at the number of people who applied for EI, for example, if you actually think about it, what that means is that people will not have the money to spend. And so, sure, businesses might reopen. Who's going to go? What will that look like? And so I think we kind of need to think through those ripples. And I think what you can do do to best serve yourself is to be conservative where where you need to be, because then the upswing is the upswing. And so you're able to at least root yourself in that reality, and make those decisions from that place, first of all.
Yeah. There's a saying, I think it's from Warren Buffett, where it's like, when the tide goes out, you can see you swimming naked, right? And it's like, who made the right decisions when times were good? Who figured out their cash flows when times were good? Who stayed disciplined when times were good? And, that's something that I, with the clients that I work with, I'm like, listen, the reality is we have no idea. And I would say this, in October or November, and say, listen, World War III could break out. A global pandemic could break out. Whatever could break out. We have no idea. Like, uncertainty is everywhere. Let's act responsibly right now, right? And let's not be fearful. I'm not trying to inflict fear, but I'm saying let's be responsible right now. For you, what are some of the lessons that you've learned, or the revelations that you've had that this time has brought to you in the past couple of months? Where's your learnings been in this?
It's a good question, Joss, and I don't know if I'm a place of learnings yet. I feel like I don't even know how many days it's been. Time, that's a good learning. Time is so bizarre in these times. But what I think about a lot right now is simple things. So I think about, what is the next right thing? Not what the next right thing is, but what is the next most immediate first right thing? I think about that when I'm talking to my team. I think about that when I'm talking to my board. I think about that when I think about how to spend my time. Like, I think about that literally in the most granular way. What is the next right thing? And I think that is serving me well right now. I am thinking about, what will I remember of this time? One of the things I've been doing, there have been 2 things that I've been doing every single day, and however many, I don't know, it's been like 50 days, 80 days, I don't even know. Somewhere between 50 and 80, I think. Yeah. Is I've been going on a walk with my kids every morning and doing like a 2-minute check-in with myself and them on video, and then I've been banging pots at 7:00. every
Bam,
night.
bam, bam, bam,
Right.
bam.
And so I think about, if I look back on this time, and all I can say is that I thought about the next right thing in a conversation with someone, in what we do at FWE, in how I spend my time. And I showed up every morning with some semblance of presence, however that looked like or felt like. And I expressed gratitude, which is what my 7 o'clock is. I express gratitude and I pray. I think what I can learn from that then is that those are the things that will matter. And if I look back and I have made no huge decisions that have led to anything huge and significant, though I certainly hope that, something like that comes out, or that we've created value and deeply engaged and purposed. But if we can come back to those things, those are a pretty good foundation, and those would be a pretty good foundation for going forward, I think.
That's such a great baseline. That's such a great personal baseline to come back to, right? Yeah, it's such great culture too, like personal culture. Like we talk about culture and corporate culture and these things, but like what's the culture of Paulina Cameron? That's a good culture, as far as I can tell. You know what? Why don't we go down that route as well? Like, I know fairly intimately a lot of or a couple of your employees at FWE, and they all love working there. And I wanted to ask their leader, how do you create such an abundant, positive, good culture? What is a good, like, culture is this weird word overused to the nines, but you clearly figured it out. What does that mean to you, and how are you approaching it? Because your personal culture is pretty damn good.
I would love to ask the team to answer that. Can we call a friend and dial them in? And I say that because here's the thing. Yes, culture is an overused word. At its simplest, culture is just the behavior of everyone in those individual moments. So culture is the behavior of when you see someone slump down in front of their computer, do you go by and say, hey, do you need a tea or a hug? I can tell you on a weekly, sometimes daily basis, I will hear someone talking about something in the office, or not even, and then all of a sudden I hear, it sounds like you need a hug. Do you need a hug? That is what culture makes. It's someone saying, I am so overwhelmed, I don't even know where to begin. And someone else saying, great, let's walk through. How can we create a plan for you? What can we do? Right? I truly believe it lives and breathes in the behaviors and how we show up for one another. And so how do we do that? How do we bring that to life? We are certainly not perfect, and I think there are a few things that we do that work. We do a daily check-in with one another, and we do that. We use a word and a number, and I learned that from a great mentor of mine. So the word is describe how you're feeling in one word, and the number is your energy level. So if I were to show up to a meeting one day and I said, I'm a 3 and I'm overwhelmed, we're probably going to spend a decent amount of time at that meeting collectively talking about how to support you. If I say, I'm a 10 and I'm inspired, then awesome, great. And we dive into it, we make space for each of those. My philosophy around working has always been, we are focused on doing good work. What I will, and having a strengths-based workplace. And so we invest in our team's professional development and personal development. This year, I know you've interviewed Devin Brooks. We invested for the team to utilize Sphere. That was our way of supporting everyone. And so everyone is able to use it every month and support their own growth, because that to me is incredibly important, is making sure that the team feels like they are growing and connected and engaged. I love when team members work and collaborate with each other across whatever they're working on. During these COVID times, but not even during these COVID times, flexible work is what works. And I believe if, you want to work at 8 p.m. because that is when your energy flow is, or you want to work at 6 a.m., great. Great. Cool. Do the good work and follow on that. And I do think that it helps that the work that we do feels tremendously rewarding, and we see the impact that it has. And so we have that immediate feedback loop that we're able to get. And, the team is so energized whenever we walk away from something like an e-series or a pitch for the purse. It's that connectivity of that energy flowing back and forth, of that giving and that generosity is such a strong fuel.
Yeah, I love it. It's one of the reasons why I love chatting with you, Paulina, is that you have this aside from being a podcast veteran, everyone go check out the FWE Go too. We'll link that in the show notes. But you have this way of operating in the clouds and the dirt, right? Like you're philosophical, high level, and then you're on the ground, like tactical, and it's like, thank you, because so many people are one way or the other way. And if they're highly tactical, you're like, yeah, but what does this all mean? And if you're highly philosophical, you're like, but what does this mean?
Yeah. What does it mean?
And so I love, I really, really love that balance there. Is there anything more from a tactical standpoint? We were very, very high level here. Is there anything that you really want to put out to the world in terms of entrepreneurs, whether that's resources or thoughts or advice or maybe common things you're telling some of the entrepreneurs that are in your circle?
I think firstly, there are resources. And I know that sounds so silly to say just like that. However, so many entrepreneurs still say that they feel lonely or that they do not know where to go for help or that they don't know how to figure it out or that they feel like they have to have all the answers. And those are all myths. Those are all things that we have either been told to believe or narratives that we think imply that that's what we need to be in order to be a successful entrepreneur, that being a successful entrepreneur means you're figuring out on your own, that you're on a lonely island or any of these things. And they simply aren't true. They're just false narratives that have been created and that you believe. And the resources out there are significant. So anything from if you need help figuring out how to raise money for your business, if you need mentorship advice, if you want to work on a business plan, there is so much out there. And I'm so happy to take specific questions around that and kind of point people to different resources. There are specific groups for women entrepreneurs that are amazing that we often collaborate with. So there truly is ways to get supported. And most of the organizations that I know in this space are really collaborative and work really well together. And so all it takes is going, hey, I'm looking for XYZ. And most of us are all just collectively happy to say, great, check this out, check this out, check this out. And so I think never has there been a time where it has always been the right time to utilize resources that exist. And now it is so important to be asking for that help and doing so. And secondly, what I talk with a lot of women entrepreneurs about, but entrepreneurs broadly too, is this whole idea of taking care of yourself, but in the vein of taking care of yourself and your business. And what I mean by that is building a definition of success that will serve you and your family and your business well. So the whole narrative around to be successful in business means you have to have this kind of a growth or it has to look this way is just that. It is just a story. It is just a narrative. And so what I wish there were more conversations about is, what do you want success to look like for yourself? What do you want success to look like for your community, for the world, for your family? And how do you build your business around that? As opposed to business success equals $5 million, venture capital backed. This is what you're doing. This is the box you're fitting into. Then over here, maybe somewhere way over here, you get to figure out everything else. And somehow you figure out how to reconcile all of that. I think now's the time where we get to take inventory and take stock of what has worked and hasn't worked in regards to that and apply those lessons going forward.
Amazing. Great segue. Before we get into the questions from the movement community, I got to ask then, what does success look like for FWE? What's the goal?
The goal is that Canadian women entrepreneurs run wildly successful businesses. That means they have the resources to do so. And the resources include everything from education, community, capital. They have what they need to be able to do so. And that's not to say we are the only place for it or the only conduit for it, but we're able to help support them with that and facilitate that happening for them. So when we design our programs, every single one of our programs, we look from an impact metric perspective. So we say, if we run E-Series, how will we define success for this? How will we be able to say this program was successful? That is not, one of the metrics for that is not X number of people attended. The metrics of success for that are, as a result of this, how many more women how many more jobs is this business able to create? What is the revenue growth? How much capital did they raise as a consequence of it? Would they recommend someone to take this program? Would they say this is the reason why they're able to grow their business? We look at the actual impact. What is the subsequent piece that enabled the business's growth? That's the way we look at it. So for us, it's creating, building, and designing programs that are able to have that impact that we're able to measure, so that then when we look at our women entrepreneurs in our community, we go, wow, this is amazing. This is what they get to do.
Okay, I'm going to stop, I swear. But what is one success story that has resonated with you personally that has been contributed to from FWE?
One? That's like asking my favorite child.
Maybe two. I'll listen to 5 if you have it.
Oh, I have like 50. Give me a sec to think about this.
No, it's I know, and now and I put you in the spot where everyone's gonna be mad. Oh man, she mentioned this one on ThinkSpace. She mentioned that one on ThinkSpace. What about me? I did X number in revenue. Why don't you love me, Paulina?
Yeah, right.
Maybe one that resonated with you personally for a different reason than
and it's funny because as soon as you
metric.
ask, my mind literally just goes blank. I know nobody all of the sudden, and that is not true. Oh gosh.
No pressure.
Okay. Here's a great one. I love this one. So I met her. I'll give you 2, and I'll give you our 2. They're both Pitch for the Purse semi-finalists, finalists. So one's from last year, one's from this year, and I'm giving you the stories of the ones who were not winners.
Okay.
Only because they're different stories than the winners, which you can read everywhere. And I love all of them. All of the stories.
All my kids are equal. All my kids are equal.
So, Copper Medical is the name of the business. And the business is started by an entrepreneur, and she's actually an ICU nurse based out in Toronto. And she created hospital wear that uses copper in it because copper is highly antibacterial. It's like 99.9% antibacterial. So what she knows, and now we're knowing this even more actually in the times of COVID, but this is last year, is germs spread on the clothing of doctors and nurses and folks who perform procedures in hospitals. And she also has a background in sports. And so a lot of sports clothing is actually made with copper wicking materials to keep sweat away and bacteria from that. Cool. She combined both of the worlds. And so she started producing scrubs and gowns that use copper wicking properties and materials. I love that because it speaks to the ingenuity of it and addressing the immediate need of it. And she's a 24-year-old ICU nurse.
Oh,
24? Not someone who you go, this is an entrepreneur, this is this. And she pitched in front of the 800-person audience and did phenomenally and had so many people.
A powerful 800-person audience, by the way.
Yeah, and had so many people, so excited to invest in her and to look at it. And so I love it because it's unexpected. And it's really solutions oriented. And it's not someone who you typically see as the quote unquote, defined entrepreneur. My other example is similar in that vein, in that kind of undefinedness. And that is an entrepreneur who's based in Alberta, and she started a technology company called FarmBucks. She's a farmer. She inherited her farm from her parents when they passed away when she was 19 years old. And grain commodity pricing is nuts. It's unregulated. It's all over the place. It's not a visible process. You can't see it or get access to it anywhere. So she basically created, I think her tagline for it is like the Expedia of grain pricing. Again, driven from a very specific need. And one of the quotes that I loved that she told me, so she's based about an hour and a half outside of Edmonton. And I asked her does she have a community? Is she really well supported? And she goes, I'm a farmer based an hour and a half outside of Edmonton. I'm a blonde, young, 32-year-old. No, I know nobody. I have no entrepreneurial community.
Nice. I love it.
And so, when I think about the women who have gone through our programs, oh my gosh, there's so many. And that the power of the community that comes together and that tangible support and the way they're able to speak about it. I mean, there's so many other stories. You have stories like Tara Bosch of Smart Suites, who was 24 when she started it, is now a multi-million-dollar company selling across North America. And I think she's in Europe now. I don't know. She's all over. Smart Suites, delicious. So, there's so many powerful stories, and those are as equally powerful as, a woman who runs a salon a hair salon in a small community who, thanks to the community and the education, is able to open perhaps one more location and serve more jobs in her community and feel stronger about the work she's doing.
Amazing. I love it. These are great. And I love seeing those pitches too at the gala and all these different types of things. Like, it's just like, man, one of the most fun things about business is that we're making shit better. Like, we're solving problems. Anyways, that's great. Couple of questions for the movement community right here, and we'll wrap up because I'm already over time. And the team's going to kill me for this one, but couple questions that we got from the movement community. So if you guys don't know already, every guest that we do on the movement challenge, which is actually gearing up for a round 2, which is not just going to be based in Vancouver, it's not going to be based all over North America. You guys can dive into that. We'll link that in the show notes as well. But we threw some questions out to you guys, or we asked for some questions from you guys, and we asked for some questions from the Think Space family as well. And we got 2 of them here. First one here for you, Paulina, is if you were now going to open a business from scratch, what would it be?
Something to do with children and education and play.
Okay. Why that?
Because I think there's a big opportunity to shift the way we do education for children. And I think there's a big need for that. And and I've been isolated with my kids for I don't know how many days. And so anything that will help with that, I would be so into, and I would be allocating funds towards.
I love it. Our second question from the movement fam is, and you touched on this a little bit earlier, but what are the most important resources for small business owners now? And is it different for female entrepreneurs? I know you said we touched on a couple use cases, businesses that are in different stages. And you mentioned, a couple of resources off the top of your head, but what's most important that people should be looking at right now?
Okay, so let's talk about the BC Vancouver audience for this. So a great place for resources is Small Business BC. They do a number of educational and obviously now virtual webinars, tangible resources, etc. You have Women's Enterprise Center, which does loan funds and educational resources. We work with them a lot on the loan fund. If you're based in BC and Vancouver, one of the places that I think has been doing a really good job in responding to the needs in a way that they are actually needed and useful has been Van City. They've created loans and programs for everyone from folks who are in the gig economy to business owners in a really smart way. And it's very accessible funding. I think what they were doing is brilliant and is so needed. So if I was a small business owner and I needed access to capital, I would 100% be going to them. Hopefully you're utilizing all the things that the federal government has put in place. I know some people have been really hesitant to take out additional debt, and I think for many that is really wise. And I will say, we're going to be in this for the long run. This is going to be a marathon, not a sprint, in terms of the long-term economic impact of it. So get what you can now. And what I mean by that is before your credit score gets a hit, apply for your line of credit, apply for the loan. Don't use the money. Don't put money on your credit card. Don't put money on your line of credit, but get it before your credit is shot. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, but get it when you can. There's always that saying, it's easy to get money when you don't need it, hard to get money when you do.
Yeah.
So apply for the things, the 40,000 Government of Canada loan, 10,000 of that is going to be forgivable, which basically means it's a $10,000 grant. Think
Free
about how
money.
you're going to use that. Like, use it to make money, invest in either your own education, invest in a technology platform that's going to help you be more resourceful in the future. People are moving online. When you're moving online, think about how to actually make that sustainable. Don't just move it online for the next month, but make it work for you in the long run. So use that money smartly, and it can really serve you well.
That is great advice. Thank you for that. Amazing. If someone just listened to this and they go, holy, Paulina, FWE, I got questions, we got to talk. Where would you like to send people?
So for all things FWE, you can go to all the socials at FWE Canada, and this airs right next week. Awesome. So right around when this is airing, so it's either happening today as you're listening to this or tomorrow, we are announcing a program we'll be bringing to you early June, all around supporting you with your resilience. It will be free and accessible and open to all, so go to our website or socials to learn more. And for all things me and my cute children,
adorable. I can vouch.
I'm at Paulina A. Cameron.
Amazing. Paulina, thank you so much for your time. We will link everything in the show notes, and good luck. Good luck with everything. It's a marathon, not a sprint, as you said. And, I can't wait to see your organization, whenever the other side of this is. And I can't wait to see how skilled and weathered you guys are going to be, and truly, truly resilient, and how much better you're going to be. So thank you for everything that you do, and thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Joss. It was great to be here, and the hugs will be so good.
That was a damn good podcast. It was a good freaking podcast. I felt great about that one. Paulina, thanks for coming on. Listen, everyone, if you're a female entrepreneur, go check out FWE. They have a ton of resources. We'll link everything in the show notes. That's on thinkspacepodcast.com/Paulina-Cameron. Everything's going to be there. Just go check that out. Go check out The Go-To, which is a podcast for, a resource for female entrepreneurs. Amazing podcast. And also just go check out Paulina's personal Instagram. Go see what she's posting, how she's feeling. She's very authentic and transparent on her socials, which is a breath of fresh air. Anyways, we'll link all that stuff in the show notes. Really appreciate you guys, as always. Everyone from Movement, listen, I'm going to take you from Movement, which is great. We're going to stay with Movement. But we're also going to get on this ThinkSpace train. It's crazy, man. I think music is now going to be replaced by podcasts. It is for me personally. I know it is for a lot of people around me. So you guys need new podcasts to listen to. I get it. Long form content that you can listen to while you're doing your cardio, while you're going to work, while you're in transit, while you're doing things around the house. And listen, I'm a big fan of, Joe Rogan and Tim Ferriss, but listen, get tired of those guys' voice. You need something local, and I'm here to give that to you. Anyways, Movement family, go check out our back catalog. There's a lot of amazing podcasts over there for you guys, and subscribe, rate, like, all that stuff. I mean, I don't really know what you're supposed to do, but just engage. And what I personally want you to do is to DM me, is to message me, is to email me with questions and follow-ups. And hey, Joss, why didn't you ask such and such about this, that, and the other? Hey, have you thought about this? We want to expand thought. We want to grow. We want to explore the human growth experience, and engagement and collaboration is a lot of what that's about. And that's where a lot of my joy, comes from in life, is engaging with you guys. So anyways, lots of love. Paulina, amazing podcast. Really, really excited. Everyone go check out FWE. And until next week, congrats on the Movement Challenge, my friends. We have round 2 coming up here, and I will see you at home doing workouts then. Ciao.